Hello, all. I hope everyone's having had a fantastic week. We are nearing the conclusion of the book of Genesis in a few more weeks. However, this week we are in Parashat Vayigash. Uh, the exact translation or literal translation would be Vayigash alav Yehuda, and Judah came up to him or approached him, and we are reaching the crescendo of the Joseph story with the fantastic revelation, the removal of the mask, so to speak, where he reveals himself to his brothers. And I would like to discuss a little what are the themes undergirding that revelation. Um, for some framing, I'll use the the idea that Rav Nachum from Breslov brings up in his famous work Likutei Moharan, where he talks about how the concept that everything is ultimately turned for the good. This relates to a Kabbalistic term of Leit Atar Panui Mine. There is no space void of you, and ultimately, all the source of all is God, which is good. So sometimes in our life, a a person will go various or strange different processes in his life without necessarily being aware of them. And then at one certain moment, it takes on an entirely different meaning in one's life. So before Joseph tells his brothers, "I am Joseph," in Genesis 45:3, up until that moment, the brothers are terrified. We're going to be the slaves of this Egyptian leader. Our father's going to suffer, and there's really no way out for us from this debacle that we've fallen into. And then in one moment, when he says, "I am Joseph, your brother," it's completely all turned into the good in one moment. And we could see this happening in the process of repentance that a person undergoes, and even the redemption process for the land of Israel or the nation of Israel, where things retroactively take on a completely different meaning from what we had thought originally. Um, and we could see here that it seems like Joseph is teaching his brothers within the verses over here the certain secrets and lessons of repentance. So first, Joseph comes to them and says, "I am Joseph, your brother, who you sold into Egypt." And there's an implication over here, which is, you, my brothers, are guilty for the sale, and the responsibility is entirely yours. However, he then continues to say, "And now do not be grieved, for God sent me before you to preserve life." So here, he is allowing them to internalize what's unfolding in front of them and saying it's not really as bad as you think, because ultimately you were a tool in God's hand. You were just a catalyst to allow us to get here, but ultimately God is pulling the strings. However, he ends this statement to them and by saying, "And now it was not you who sent me here, but God." So here, the brothers are not even a tool; rather, the framing here that it's done by God alone. And each one of these is really correlates to the process of redemption. First, there is regret and recognizing the evil that one personally did. So here, Joseph first lets the brothers know this was your doing, and you have to recognize and accept this, that this is an evil that you did. Then there's another level of repentance, which is repentance from fear. And repentance from fear is one still is connected to the sin that he's done, but he's fearing the consequences. And in this case, the sin is still attributed to the person, and in our case, the brothers, but the person is exempt from punishment because the halacha considers this kind of repentance from fear. We look at the sin as unintentional in a certain sense, and that correlates to the second line that Joseph tells them, which is, "This is semi your fault." Lastly, there's repentance from love, which is the highest level of repentance, which is identifying with the good, and when it becomes clear from in retrospect that all the processes we went through were ultimately divine and from God. And when we could recognize that and we could see that all these things are fully from God, in that sense, we are no longer responsible for it. Rather, we could see and could appreciate how God was doing this to us from his divine wisdom and love. So the brothers ultimately realize that really the familial bonds and the 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 God of their fathers and forefathers was alive and present and behind the scenes, so to speak, throughout this whole endeavor. Uh, I mention this now because, unfortunately, as some of you might know, uh, Israel had a terrible loss uh, when we unfortunately uh, killed three of our own citizens who were held hostage in Gaza. And during these, as we say, it's always darkest before the dawn. It's hard to recognize and see how there could be good over here. However, even when the brothers are in Egypt, at the end of the day, there is salvation to be had, there's redemption to be had. And I hope that when the dust settles, both physically and metaphorically, we will be able to see the blessing that God has given us and the responsibility we have into identifying those blessings and raising those divine sparks. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom and a peaceful weekend.